I stumble into class a couple minutes late. I pull out my notebook and I start writing this poem. The professor is writing notes on the chalkboard. I make out what I can from the back of the room. He looks back, smiles, and says my name like I'm his favorite student. His name is Failure, and he's one of my greatest teachers. I find myself retaking his classes again and again. I find myself retaking his classes again and again. I retake his classes to find myself. I retake and remake mistakes. I'm an anthology of my mistakes. A collection of stories and poems and plays and mess-ups and almost misdemeanors linear to a series of good times filled with bad choices. My demeanor is that of a kid that still believes in God but hasn't felt his presence in too long. Maybe it was college. Maybe it was booze or weed or any of the three. Maybe it was the girls or the coke or losing too much time, money, dignity in the back room of the strip club on the south side. I don't know. All I know is that I'm not the boy I used to be. Lately, the best medication has been poetry. These scraped knees and bruised elbows remind me that I've fallen. And failure reminds me that I keep falling. He tells me, this is not a you can do it poem. This is a I did it poem and I do it again poem because I did it again. It's just the id made me do it again. Snatch the cape from the superego again. You see, there was this guy named Sigmund Freud. He spoke and wrote of the id, superego, and ego. The id is the internal drive that hides where the wild things are, causing us to make choices without thinking. Where the superego, superhero is rational thought that keeps us on the straight and narrow. The ego is where the two titans collide. Dante is where the two titans collide. And snap back to class. Failure snidely reminds me that history often repeats itself and it rolls off his tongue like a well-timed comeback. Like we have this conversation weekly, like I grapple with my demons for shits and gigs. He asks me, then why do they keep haunting you? When's the last time you cleaned your skeletons from your closet? I tell him, fuck the closet. I'm always on the move, so I keep my skeletons in my backpack, right next to my notebooks and my prayers. These bones sink to the bottom next to a dime bag, some empty PBR cans, and the cross I used to wear around my neck. I could dump them out, but their weight on my shoulders is what keeps me grounded. As for my demons, I may stumble, but at least I fall forward. The skeleton is to fall. The skeleton key is to fall forward. I remind him that those that can, do, and those who can't, teach, and it rolls off my tongue like a well-timed comeback. I reach in my backpack, dig through the bones, and I pull out my notes from his lecture. I tell him, scraped knees and bruised elbows remind me that I've fallen, but at least I fall forward. Stumbling through these hallways, I will always fall forward. Like my blood, I'll always be positive. I'll always be a B student. I'll always be a student. He says, great. I'll see you next week. Next week, I stumble into class a couple minutes late. Pull out my notebook, and I write this poem.
Yeah!